Hey folks, welcome back to the Land Fixer podcast. I'm Logan, your host, and as usual, we're talking land. Today we have a new and exciting guest, Brad DeGraw, old friend of mine and actually local native. He lives just about 15, 20 minutes from my house here, and we have a meetup together that we run in Dallas, Fort Worth. Brad, say hi.
Hey, hey.
Awesome. Thank you for being on today. Folks, as usual, if you are interested in buying land at a wholesale price, go to primelandexchange.com. If you have land you need to sell, go to the landfixerpodcast.com. We will help you sell your land on Prime Land Exchange. If you need any deals funded, go to landpartnerfunding.com, send in an application, and we would be more than happy to take a look at your deal. If you are just a Joe Schmo landowner that has a property that you think you could develop or do any sort of forced appreciation strategy on, I would be happy to work with you on that deal. You can email me at thelandfixer@gmail.com. And that brings us back to Brad. Brad, tell us about yourself. And at the top, go ahead and tell us a little bit about your funding service and how folks can get in touch with you there.
Hey, I'm Brad DeGraw. And our little piece in the ecosystem is we fund land flips from coast to coast. You know, the smaller, the better for us. We like 50,000 and under, and the shorter, the better. And when it's not a match for us, we try to steer it to someone else who it is a better match for, such as Logan or others. And that's kind of how we fit into the ecosystem.
Okay, and how can people get in touch with you if they need funding on deals like that?
Oh, our website is allterraincapital.net. I'm also on all the socials. Just reach out. I'm everywhere, and we're pretty quick to respond.
Yeah, if you're on any of the land Facebook groups, you're gonna encounter Brad DeGraw. He is around and notorious. We'll start calling you the notorious BDG, Brad DeGraw.
Thanks.
Well, awesome. We have a few topics that I wanted to get to today, but the one that stands out to me is near and dear to my heart is networking. So, when I got into real estate investing, the very first thing I did was start a networking group, the one that we still run together. I had zero knowledge about land investing, but I went ahead and started the DFW Land Investing Group, and that has paid dividends in a lot of different ways. One is obviously just getting to know people, surrounding yourself with good people, but the more people that you know, the more that you are going to have people holding you to a higher standard, or you're going to feel a little more compelled to get into new stuff. So how about you tell us just a little bit about your how you see networking and how you run it, because you're very, very good at it.
Well, thank you. And it's really just about doing that. It's about connecting with people. Realizing for me, I start with the premise that I want to be a piece of a bigger machine. Um, Rather than compete, I'd rather collaborate. So just find out where you fit in, like find your own strengths and weaknesses, and whatever you're weak, that should be where you're networking towards. So you can kind of fill in that weakness. So to find those people, you have to meet everybody and just try to be a great influence, whether it's online, like go and join all the groups, type in the keywords and join all the groups, or in person. Don't be afraid to show up. I'm an introvert, but you have to show up, and when you do that, and don't be afraid to drive. If you have to go out of town, Austin, Houston, I'm notorious for just getting in the car and going and being in the group.
Yep.
And so do those things at your comfort level, and then just one step beyond that, and you'll start to see a difference.
Okay, yeah, I would agree with that. Especially where you're talking about like just like anything else, start with the end in mind. I mean, um, there is a wrong way to network. Let's say that. The wrong way to network is to just kind of spin wheels. So if all you're doing is just kind of randomly associating with people that are maybe loosely associated with a long-term goal or agenda for you, then it's not going to really produce the results that you want, right? So you said, find the exact sort of people that you need to be spending time with, and then go out of your way to target them, well, not target them, but get in front of them, right? And with what sort of regularity do you try to do that? I mean, you're so good. I feel like you must have like a master calendar, a follow up, or something like that.
I actually do have a calendar. That's another great thing. Use your tools. Like Google Calendar is free. You can go and create a list of all of the meetups in your area, add them to a Google Calendar so you know where they are and when they are. And by that, you have an inventory to go to. Maybe you're not feeling it, don't go, but you know where and what's available. Also, sorry, I have an English bulldog in the back seat. Um, Also, go ahead and see who's going to be there. See who's RSVP. Yes. Also, see who's going to be there. See who has RSVP. Yes. See who the speakers are, what the subject matter is. See what the subject matter is, and see how you can go ahead and start planning those conversations.
Right. Yeah. And you're always adding value. And that's one of the things that I think also really stands out for when I'm, associating with you or anyone that's referred to me by you. Like you are consistently dropping my name on deals that maybe don't fit your buy box. And I've had a lot of like, I don't know how many have turned into direct deals yet, but a lot of ones that we've underwrote that could have been deals if, they had meat on the bone. Right. Um, and you seem to really go out of your way to understand who you ought to refer to, right? Like you're not just randomly throwing names. You're like, oh, this is more of a Logan deal. This is probably more of like a Drew Haney deal or whoever it might be. So that level of organization is actually really important. Like relationships take work, in my opinion, and networking in business means providing value, and you're not providing value if you're just arbitrarily passing people around, right, or leads around or whatever. So I think you do a really great job of that. Now, tell me, as far as how you've grown your business, is that mostly networking? You think that's what you would give credit to?
It's exactly that. Yeah, we don't run ads. We're pretty quiet and understated, other than showing up and being part of the conversation. And really, that's the key metric to start with. Is the more conversations I could be in about land deals, the more business we're going to do. That's it. Like start with that. Get in conversations.
Now, say you are the sort of person that is, because you said you're a little bit of an introvert. Say you are an introvert, and this whole idea of networking is new to you. I think the common fears people would probably feel is like, well, I don't know anything, right? I'm new, so nobody's gonna want to hear my opinion, or maybe they don't want to be embarrassed because they don't know a lot about whatever the subject is. Um, how do you overcome that, maybe that introverted nature, to go spend a lot of time with people? And is there a way to actually kind of switch? I've heard this recently about folks saying like, I used to be an introvert and now I'm not. Do you think that's kind of the case for you?
Yeah, a little yes and a little no. So part of it is just realizing it's a role to play. So, put on a hat and that's the character you're going to play during that thing. Or, just put on a shirt that's like, this is my going out and networking shirt. And I'm just going to be this character for this time. And I'm going to do what this person who would do, which would be the extrovert. And then when you go home, you take it off and you go to sleep or whatever you do to kind of recharge your social battery. And so for me, that's what I do, is just realize like, okay, it's go time, it's show time, and you do it. And then it might drain your battery. And then you just take some time to recharge.
Yeah, yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, I don't really think I'm extroverted, even though I feel like I'm always out there, right? I'm always engaging, I'm always on the phone, I'm always on podcasts or doing something. But I'm definitely not recharged by by that sort of stuff. And I think that's how they usually describe it, is like if you get energy from being around people. And I don't think that's the
Mm-hmm.
case for me. So I feel you there. Here's maybe a little deeper question. We live in this day and age where does networking happen now? I mean, a little bit of it happens in person, but most of the time networking is a like or a comment on Facebook or some sort of digital interaction. Do you feel like that's compelling in any way, or do you think it's useful? Like, for example, sort of in these Facebook groups, you see folks that are very active, like they are commenting in every group all the time, and I I can't. Like I think about how much time that takes and how much energy that takes, and I just don't have it in me. So I'll like pull myself into Facebook for like 30 minutes every other day and try to stumble around a little bit. But what do you think is like the value of these digital interactions and networking? Do you think they're worthwhile, or do you have like a process where you take it from like it's a comment and a like, and then it's a phone call, and then it's a relationship? What does that look like?
I think it's very valuable. Not from my perspective of you need to put out the best content and then that's going to create something. That can work. It does work, but that's not my style. I watch for people who need help, who say, I'm having this problem in this area. does anyone have any insights? And even if it's not a funding thing that would make me money, I want to be part of the conversation, especially if I have any insight on how to help these people go in a better direction. So I think it's super valuable when you see someone in the water saying, I can't swim. Yeah, pull them to shore, pull them in the boat. It doesn't have to always be you're saving the day and making a business arrangement out of it, but you gave some good advice or some insight.
Yeah, you're definitely very good about that. I've always noticed too when somebody's asking about funding, you don't plug yourself, you refer to the list of funders, which I think is very admirable and very good natured. But yeah, I think that is probably the biggest advantage to Facebook and these groups is that sort of people can raise their hand. Like
Hmm.
it actually is a huge benefit to people that have problems that need solving. And if you're of the mindset that hey, I'm going to hop in here and really help this person out, you can build really long-term relationships. Like, I've mentioned it here before, but every once in a while I'll post in some of the groups. I probably need to do this again soon, but I'll just be like, hey, I'll have, free 15, 20-minute phone calls with anybody over any land problem. Just let me know. I've done almost all of it, and made the mistakes and all this. And a lot of the times the conversations I have end up being emotional. Like they'll be like, yes, I have this business issue, but that business issue is really a money issue, and that money issue is really like a I don't feel secure issue. And it's funny how quickly you can go from I have this land deal issue to like someone's like, and this is what I'm really struggling with, and it's kind of, and when you're able to sort of have that deep diving relationship or conversation, that's when you start having real relationships with people, which is very valuable.
Well,
Um,
yeah,
so I,
you've had some great episodes on that. You've had mental health episodes, spiritual
mhm,
episodes. You've had some
mhm.
really good stuff just deep diving into non-business topics.
Yeah, and I really think that's what interests me. Like, I've had people ask me if I have a passion for land, and it's like, not really. How do you? I don't. Maybe somebody does. I enjoy a lot of the things around real estate. Like I enjoy transactions and relationships and problem solving. But ultimately, if I go to a piece of my property, I don't know. Rarely am I like overwhelmed with emotion or like, so what else? Do you have any like pointers on networking, maybe getting started? Here's the big one. Maybe you have some good pointers on staying sort of committed, showing up on a regular basis for networking, anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, treat this as you would an investment or a job or a business. It's long term, right? The payday is not going to show up day one. All your efforts hopefully will turn into something fruitful. And it may not be what you think. It may be a relationship. It may be that you do some real estate deals. It may be that you get some ideas and you pivot another direction. So just put in the time, put in the effort, and realize it's going to be more time, effort, and twists and turns than you imagined. You're going to maybe end up in a new direction, but have fun with it. Like just go with it.
Yeah. Do you feel like you've learned maybe how to read people more quickly because of all these, sort of engaging relationships?
Yeah, you'll catch some of the same ideas and concepts early, and sometimes they're bad premises. Um, and- or my whole model is about risk. And so when I see someone having a conversation about risk as they always win and there's no way to lose, and maybe they did some amazing things, but they're not doing enough underwriting and taking risk as serious as they should, to me that's dangerous. And I know we'll probably never do business if they don't honor risk. And so keep that in mind. You'll find people who see the business model the same way, and you'll find people who see it the exact opposite way. And you don't have to do business with everyone. And it doesn't mean I'm always right. I'm happy to be wrong, but I want to do business with people who see things the same way I see them.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think probably one of the last things that before we move on to the next topic, just kind of staying in networking that you've been really excellent at is, it's not when you're networking, like you're not really just building this inherent value, like it's what I bring to the table, but like the wider your network goes, it's like, oh, I know somebody. Like you have a problem, and I know somebody that can help you. And that's honestly that's why my podcast is called The Land Fixer, because my whole goal is like, okay, I want anyone to bring me any property with any problem, and if I can't help you directly, I'll find somebody. I know somebody who knows how to solve this problem, or I can solve it, or whatever. And I really feel like you have a lot of that too. So if anyone comes to you and says, "Hey, Brad, I have this issue," if you're not able to help them, generally you know who to hand them off to. And that's sort of a superpower in and of itself, right?
Yeah, and that's the nice thing about doing the networking. Over time, it kind of compounds because now you know the people, and then with enough conversations, you know the people that they know. And before long, like you said, you've got an idea of which direction to go with just about every weird thing that can happen. You may not have the exact answer, but you at least know who to push them towards and which way is the right way and which way is probably the way that's not going to work.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly. Well, on to the next. So I had, we're kind of wrapping up 2024, and this is the time of year where a lot of us get self-reflective, and if we're smart, we're being a little self-reflective in business and maybe looking at what's next, or maybe what we think could be happening in 2025. And you and I had coffee last week and kind of gave our own thoughts privately on the matter, but I'd be interested in hearing your take on what do you see coming up this next year? Do y'all have any specific plans in place, or tactics that you're looking to deploy?
Yeah, for us, and you and I basically see the same picture. Right now, the sellers are hanging on to their properties because the world still seems like it's uncertain. What's on the horizon? We're seeing so many weird things that the world's never seen before. So if someone's not in a crisis to sell, I think you're going to see a slower market for the sellers to give deep, deep discounts. It's going to take more negotiation. It's going to take more time to get the deals that pencil out. That's on the buy side. You're going to spend more money in marketing. You're going to spend more time in negotiating. And on the sell side, it's kind of the same thing. The buyers feel like it's a buyer's market. They're going to shop a little bit longer. They're going to get the best deals. Hey, bud. They're going to get the best deals. They want appraisals. They want surveys. They want pretty property, and then they want a discount. And so be aware that, last year, the year started with deals turning around in 3 or 4 months and then ended the year with 6 or 8 months. It was much more common. And we're probably still going to see that longer turnaround time. So if you're using leverage, you need to factor that in. So you need to either buy it cheaper, get cheaper money, like seller finance is a potential option. And just realize the only way you can give the buyer the price they want is to make sure that the seller gives you enough discount to do that and carry it for maybe up to a year.
Yeah, and I agree. I really feel like a lot of what we're going to see is fewer deals with big spreads.
Mhm.
Um, so for us, we're kind of looking at how can we get cheaper money? That's one of the
Mhm.
things that we're interested in. Um, we have a meeting next week where we're talking about let's just buy more wholesale. If we're in a market that's slower on the dispo side, let's just stock up. We're in a phase of the cycle where it's just going to take longer to sell certain properties, and we want a lot of flexibility. So some of these funding deals that say, we're trying to buy a funding deal or fund a deal at 50 cents on the dollar. If somebody's bringing me a deal that's 60 cents on the dollar, um, it's really common for there just not be enough meat, right? For both of us to leave happy. So,
Mhm.
and for us, we have the dispo engine at Prime Land Exchange. So we have the ability to just be like, hey, all right, you got this under contract for 60 grand. I'll buy it from you. I'll give you $5,000 assignment of contract. That's quick money for you. Go find the next one. And then we'll go sell that. And then we can make some money on it, deploy our capital, and not feel in a rush or feel like we're compelled to really just like be locked in with the managing partner on the deal. Because I was actually listening to Drew Haney on a podcast, and one of the things that he said that I thought was at least very well stated, something that I don't think I really put together, is funders are sometimes in contradiction with their partners if you're operating on a profit share, um, because they're going to want to hold on to the property to sell it for the highest dollar, whereas we as funders are wanting to turn through deals. We'll take a little less on one deal to go redeploy our money. Because if we can cycle our money 3 or 4 times instead of once or twice over the course of a year, our returns are way, way better. Um, so yeah, that's kind of why we're looking at maybe let's try something maybe more like buying wholesale or something like that. What else do you see for this year, or any other plans that you think you're going to take?
Well, just looking at the industry, we are seeing folks leave the industry. Some of last year's best performers, the operators, they're not performing as well this year. I think you're going to see a little bit of a consolidation. I think full-time folks are going to go part-time, and the part-time folks are going to go back and get jobs. So I think you're going to see some of that. And then as far as us, just we think patience is the right answer. I'd rather go to a lower volume, more stable, low risk rather than stay high volume and increase my risk. That's my model. I think the folks who are keeping the volume and taking on more risk, I think they're going to regret it halfway or most of the way through next year. I think they're going to be singing a different tune.
Yeah, and this is kind of a random question, but I'd be interested in your insight. Recently, I've been considering, to your point about people leaving the industry, I've been considering buying land businesses.
Hmm.
And, my thought was, what are the components of a land business? Well, there's assets, right? So there's land that I could maybe buy wholesale from somebody. There's performing notes, which, I know how to underwrite and buy notes. And then there's the least valued but very valuable aspect, which is data. A lot of these folks will have lists for acquisition, for disposition, hot leads, cold leads, all this sort of stuff that if you're smart and you have a team behind you, you can actually leverage. Especially if they're kind of like half performers. They might have a lot of
Hmm.
people in negotiations that they have not brought across the finish line because they don't know how, things like that. So have you ever considered like how you might value a land business, or if you think that's a good idea to buy a land business?
Well, for me, it goes back to risk. I want to take as little risk as possible. So if you can buy it just based on the assets and not give strong multiples, that'd be great. And well, like Drew mentioned when he sold his business, it was basically a bunch of notes. So he just sold the notes. And I know the buyer of that business. He's happy with that transaction and he's doing well with it. So I would buy it for as kind of like any other asset. You're trying to buy low, build value, and then, keep it or sell it. I would focus on just the value of the assets. I'd give zero value to the data, even though it's valuable. Um, and the systems, you already have systems. So
Yeah.
I would dial down the value as much as possible to just the solid assets.
Yeah, I
And you know
think
how to underwrite them.
right. Yeah, I think for systems that would only really have a value if you were new, right? So if you already have a
Hmm.
land company, so then it doesn't really make sense to buy the systems. Um, cool. Then let's getting a little bit back more into your wheelhouse and something that we talked about when we had coffee last week, which is raising capital, right? For most people who are in real estate, this comes up, right? Unless you are already loaded, right? When you go into real estate, most of the time you're going to have to go in search of OPM, other people's money, or bank loans, or anything like that. Do you have any sort of guiding principles or philosophies on how you go about getting money? Anything on that topic?
Oh, this is volumes of conversation here, but let's start with the simple things. First, have a proven model because the same way I'm risk averse, your capital providers are going to be risk averse. They don't care how many dollars you can make them if your business is risky and you might lose all their money. So they want to know what what's the worst case scenario, maybe even the three worst case scenarios, and how are you avoiding that? What are you doing to mitigate that risk? What's the paperwork look like? Who are the people? In fact, those are the three things: paperwork, people, and property or assets if it's not specifically laying. It might be notes. What are you doing to make sure that we're on the right page of, the risk model? So talk about risk and talk about success. And if you don't ask for money, you're more often than not going to have better access to the money. So what I mean by that is when you ask for advice, you share, here's what's working in my business. I'd like your perspective. And so when you ask for someone's perspective or their insights, they're a little more open-minded and they're a little less defensive about you came here for my wallet. No, I just came here for the advice. And if they really like what you do and they really understand it well, they'll say at some point in the conversation, they'll say, well, what are you missing? What do you need? It seems like you've got your risk, you've got your systems, you've got everything figured out. What do you need? Well, I need more fuel in the tank. Like, I'm a good driver. I built the car. It runs well. We just keep running out of gas. And then now you can start talking about returns and how often you pay them, and finding a model that really works.
See, that analogy doesn't work because you're in a Tesla, so you don't fill your tank.
Well, I just need more charge. I just, it runs well, and it's just I've got some distance to go, and I have to keep stopping at Bucky's and recharging. If we could get a little more distance out of it.
That's funny. Yeah, if you're just listening to this, Brad's recording from his car today because of his internet issues. But yeah, so tell us a story. I love hearing stories. Do you have any good stories about maybe the first time you went and asked for money, or an embarrassing
Oh,
moment, or a slam dunk, anything like that?
yeah, I'll tell you a couple good ones here. All right. So the very first one, I just started out and I didn't have much money, but I proved the model worked. So I made a few loans. The loans paid back. We did good underwriting. The operator did what they were supposed to do. Everything worked. And I had a different business that was working, but was shut down. It's Amazon business. That's a whole nother story, but we didn't get the notice we hoped. It just all of a sudden we couldn't log in the business, and that changed our income. And so I met up with my dad and I explained, what was going on in life. He's like, well, do you need some money? I'm like, well, I could really use just an investment. I could use a loan, not just a gift of money. I'd be happy to pay you back and, make it worth your while. It's like, okay, well, here's 100,000. Try not to lose it, which is the best scenario. Like, that's almost never going to happen unless you share DNA, right? However, the moral of that story is one, be very honest about what's going on in life, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and start with the people that you're the favorite. I'm the only son, so I'm the favorite most days. So go see your friends and family, whoever you're the favorite, neighbor, cousin, nephew, whatever. Go talk to them about what's going on in your business and your life. And they should hear it and have some suggestions. It's not always going to work, but when it does, it works really well. So the main thing in that story is find out who you're the favorite. You're the favorite grandson, nephew, neighbor, something, best friend. Go to those people first. They're going to listen to you and it'll work out sometimes, but not every time. And when it does, it's going to be great. Um, Next up, find cheap capital. It doesn't always have to be a family member. It could be lines of credit, right? Like if you have a bunch of equity in your house, great. Tap into that. You're going to borrow at 6 or 8%, and then you're going to lend it out at a much higher rate. You're just arbitraging capital. Next up, you might have assets that make sense to leverage, right? That's not your home. That's not. Think about that. If you have retirement assets that you can appropriately leverage, then there may be something, or stocks, things like that. Find the cheap money, and then once that doesn't work, once you've already tapped into all that, talk to people. Talk to people and respect that have deep pockets. And even if they don't have deep pockets, talk to the people, get their insights, and they may make introductions for you. And it may be 5 levels deep, but keep having those conversations. One, you're going to get some insights along the way. If you're asking for insights, you're going to get those. You won't always get the money. But then when you do get the money and it fits, it's the right terms, it's the right frequency, great. And if not, if it's a near match, then just say no because it's not quite the match. And then one more thing on that. Sometimes you'll have it works on paper, works on the whiteboard, but it's not the right personality. They're asking questions every day. They're just high maintenance. You'd think this is their last $100,000. And, in real estate, things get slow. Title companies don't always respond.
Hmm.
Buyers don't show up to closing. Just life happens. So they have to be able to kind of go with the flow and respect the type of business that it is and the type of communication and updates that you can provide. So even when you find the money, sometimes you're going to give the money back and say this isn't a match.
Yeah,
So,
that's super important. And it's something that when you're early, right, and your first time going to seek money, like this was my mistake. We've dealt with this with a couple of our, early partners, is we went to folks without much knowledge, without much experience, and they were happy to hand over the money, and I did not foresee how much risk, complication, headache, sweat, and tears can go into just managing other people's money if
mhm.
they are too emotionally connected to it.
Yep.
And that's a big challenge. So that is top priority in vetting. It's not even like the rate at which you're getting money, it's the heartache or headache that it comes along with it. So do you have any like maybe good give us three questions that you might ask to try to suss out if somebody is not a good money partner for those reasons?
Well, you can ask, what's your best experience being a capital provider to someone else? What's your worst experience? And how can I be closer to your best experience than the worst experience? Explain your model and say, how can I, meet your expectations? If I can't be a 10, how close can I get and this thing still work? And this way they feel like they're in the driver's seat and you're in tune. And especially all the bad stuff that they say, if that's exactly your model, then just say, hey, this isn't going to work. Um, so, if they need monthly payouts, if they need daily access to the bank account, there'll be some things that's just like, hey, I'm sorry, this isn't going to work. Just ask early, and you're still going to be wrong. You're still going to have some folks that you end up taking the money and then you find out, nope, we got to get this money back in their hands as quick as possible.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think the for me, if we're gonna go in search of money, we haven't had to do this in a while, but probably the first thing I would do is just give them my best success stories and then my failures, both
Mm-hmm.
right in front, so that they know with complete transparency that this could go really well. That's kind of the trend, right? Otherwise, we'd be out of business. But there's situations that you run into where it's not ideal. It runs long. You don't make a lot of money. You may guarantee that you won't lose any money, but sometimes these aren't very profitable deals. We've lost money on funding deals. We're staring at a couple of them right now that have run long that we're like, I don't see a way out of this, right? Without taking a hit. So that stuff does happen. Luckily, we're not using anyone else's money for that. But in the land market, you can still run into some things that get missed in DD. Right now we had a property that we sent the title. We didn't get a survey when we bought it because it was like, I don't know, we bought it for like 20 some grand, something like that. Well, we had to get a survey when we were selling it because the same attorney that happily gave us title insurance when we bought the property identified a deed overlap on the property when we were selling it. So we went through, we got the survey done, and they identified that indeed there is an overlap on the property. So now we're gonna have to put more money in. It's probably worth like 45 or $50,000. We were in it for like 30, but now we have all this headache of how we overcome this deed overlap, and it's gonna drag on. It's gonna cost more money, so it's not gonna be a very profitable deal. It's gonna be a stinky little pig. Um, so that happens, right? And that was against our best efforts, right? So well, anyways, we're getting near the top here. Any last thoughts, ideas, comments, anything you wanted to bring to the audience before we sign out?
I think the biggest tip I could give anyone is join group one that fits you best and contribute to it and just be a regular as much as you can, whether it's online, in person, try a bunch of everything. And even if you're not social, just put on the social attitude for that time period because you're going to need the community to help you out of the weird stuff that's going to happen in land.
Yep, 100%. Well, Brad, thank you so much for being on today. It was a real pleasure. One more time, how can people reach out to you?
I'm on all the socials, and then our website is allterraincapital.net.
Awesome. Well, Brad, we will see you down the Dusty Trail probably here, maybe this weekend or this Friday. We'll see. But again, great to have you. Folks, if you need to buy or sell land, go to primelandexchange.com. If you want to get in touch with me, go to email me at thelandfixer@gmail.com. And if you're in need of funding, go to landfundingpartners.com. Folks, we'll see you on the next one. Cheers.